Hello, my geeks. My guest this week is Chad Williams, an amazing person with an amazing story that will leave you feeling incredibly inspired. Just a quick note that you might hear a slight whine underneath the audio. That is just a glitch on my end. There's nothing wrong with your speakers. With that, enjoy the show.
High tech, low tech, or no tech. Through our hobbies and our passions, the geek comes out in us all.
The world's of geekdom.
I am a geek and I'm proud of it.
Geeks.
Geeks unite.
Well, let's get those nerds! Nerds! No!
Did you just call me a nerd?
Not all geeks are nerds.
Yeah.
This is Geek Therapy Radio.
What are we waiting for?
And now your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger.
Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger, as you all well know by now, a moniker that has stuck. I think I said it once or twice in the first or second episode, and it is stuck. It is my thing. I'm here today. Well, I'm going to let him introduce himself. Who am I sitting across from? Who are you, buddy?
Chad Williams.
Chad Williams. Chad, see, as I was setting up the show, Chad was just blowing my mind with all the audio knowledge he does. Because where are you going to school? What are you going to school for?
San Jack.
San Jack, and what are you taking over there?
Audio engineering.
Awesome. So, when I come to these interviews, I never know really what to expect, and I never try to think about what it could possibly be. Like, if it's going to be good, is it going to be bad? Is it what are they going to know? It doesn't matter. Because every time I go into it, I'm always pleasantly surprised with what my guest knows and what he's into. So would you say, he's good over there, would you say, other than, well, how'd you get into audio engineering? I know you like playing guitar, because that's how I got into it, was through music. Mm-hmm. So would you say?
Well, I've loved music ever since I was just knee-high to a grasshopper. My first experience with music was actually in my dad's car listening to Foreigner.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. Yeah, I knew this was going to be good. That was my first experience really with music too, is my dad was really into blues and classic rock. Mm-hmm. And growing up listening to that as a little kid, I didn't appreciate it. I didn't think it was dumb. It was just boring to me.
Oh, I was singing Jukebox Hero before I could even walk.
Yes. So I remember a similar situation, and we were in my dad's car, and he said, I forget how old I was, maybe 11 or 12 years old. He's like, "Do you want to hear the best guitar solo of all time?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever, Dad." So what do you think he played for me? Best guitar solo ever. It's in the same vein as Journey in that era.
Eruption from Van Halen.
Okay, yeah, I should have thought this through. Yeah, Eruption is probably the quintessential guitar solo of all time. But no, he played me Freebird. Lynyrd Skynyrd. And
that's a major contender,
yeah,
I would say.
Absolutely. And that was the first time that like music caught me, that I got bit by music. And I had been taking piano lessons before that. I was taking piano lessons maybe a couple years before that, but I was just doing that because I thought it's what my parents want me to do, and I was never huge into music. But when he played me Freebird, that blew my mind. I was like, "Dad, can I borrow the CD?" He's like, "Of course you can." And I think I wore that CD out.
Yeah, the thing about Freebird is it's so intimidating because it's so long. But
yeah,
if you really break it down, it's just a couple of positions.
Right. And it's all in the, I believe it's key of G. So you play the scale, the G scale, and then you play the G blues scale. That's where it exists. Mm-hmm. Now, they move their hands up and down the neck, different octaves. But what you said is exactly right. So Freebird not only got me tuned into good music, appreciating good music, but it made me pick up the guitar. Like I said, I don't want to take piano lessons anymore. I want to learn how to play guitar. And luckily my dad had a bunch of guitars, and my older brothers played guitar and bass. So I had my pick of the litter as far as like guitars to play with. And maybe the same with you, but they said, okay, you can take lessons. And so I had to bring an acoustic guitar to the lessons. I was like, I don't want to play acoustic. I want to play electric guitar.
It's so funny. That was my reaction too. The first guitar I ever got was acoustic, and I didn't want nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. I guess I wasn't mature enough to realize how cool it was.
Yeah.
But I later got into music pretty late, like 17 years old.
Yeah. Yep. So I was a similar way. I got the acoustic, and I wanted to play because I heard Freebird was still in my mind. Like, Freebird is not played on an acoustic. I want to play Freebird how they're playing it on the electric guitar. So I quickly learned and appreciated that you have to learn basics on the acoustic first, at least a little bit, because if anything else, acoustic is a lot harder to play than an electric. It hurts more.
It's all about rhythm, and yes, it does hurt more. It takes you a while to get used to the intensity of the strings.
Right, it hurts, and it hurts so bad. And as I was teaching a friend, I was helping her learn a year or two ago, and I said, just give your fingertips finger smiles, because it sounds weird, but when you're playing an acoustic and you're working on those chords, you get those lines in your fingers, the indents, like in your fingers, and it makes your finger. See, look, like I'm doing it with my finger, the pad right there, like a little smile. Mm-hmm. It's like give your finger smiles. It's just like working out anything else. Like you work out your arms, you work out your legs, you work out everything. For guitar, you have to work out your fingers, and that's why they want you playing acoustic guitar first. Because if you can't hack it on the acoustic, if you complain and you quit, then you shouldn't be playing electric, because you're going to be learning all sorts. You're going to be learning it wrong.
Yeah, one of the shortcomings is the beginning when I first started learning guitar. Mm-hmm. I really didn't concentrate on rhythm.
Yeah.
And everything. I learned from tablature.
Yeah.
And I learned songs that I've heard like 100 million times. So
right. Just by ear.
The rhythm kind of came to me.
Right.
But later, like now, I'm learning music theory, and that's pretty hard.
I haven't. See.
And
yeah.
But if I could give any advice to people that are struggling with rhythm like I was, I was just born with 2 left feet. I can't dance at all.
Okay. Okay.
But look up guitar covers, and also look up drum covers, because knowing how the drums go will give you a better idea of how the rhythm should be.
Right. Yeah. Yes, and I used to try to practice to a metronome. Mm-hmm. See, that's the one thing. I just went off beat there. Listeners were keen to hear that I just went off beat doing that little metronome. I was trying to show that I knew rhythm, and I just sped up the tempo. Anyways, one of the things when you're learning drums, I'm not a drummer. I don't know if I have the dexterity for it. Really what it is, I just haven't put the time into it. But drummers, it's the same thing, kind of how we were talking about. We don't want to learn with acoustic guitars. You want to shred like Van Halen, like right off the bat.
Exactly.
But to be a good drummer, the first lessons you learn is just hit the snare drum to the quarter beat. Tick, 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 tick. Lock it in. And if you get so good, that's the difference between good drummers and bad drummers. I don't care how elaborate you are and proficient you are with hitting 1,000 different drums and cymbals. If you're not in the beat, you're terrible. You're not a good drummer.
Yeah.
Versus the drummer who plays much more simple stuff and just keeps it.
Plus, there's a lot of responsibility with being a drummer.
Yeah.
You are the fundamental tempo of the whole entire band.
Yes.
You know? So you gotta be on your game. Because if you're off your game, then everyone else is.
Right. You can have the best singer in the universe. You can have the best guitarist on the planet. You can have the best bass player on the planet. But if the drums are not, they float in time too much, like the timing isn't that great, it all sounds like garbage. So the drummer really, like you said, has all the responsibility in the world on his shoulders to keep everything great. Because if you go out to like a bar or something like that and you listen to some live music, the good bands, the ones you remember as being great, they might not be the most technically proficient, but they were just locked in. The drummer was locked in with everybody, and everyone was locked in with the drummer. Versus the bands who were just super loud and played a million solos at once. It's too much. You don't remember those. You remember the bands that are just, the groove is locked in. So you're absolutely right. The drumming is everything. Without the drumming, you don't have anything.
Yeah, and if I may, you were saying that the best, no rhythm and everything. But did you know that Neil Peart from Rush?
Rush, yeah.
He was considered one of the greatest drummers of all time.
Yeah.
And he still went back and learned from a jazz drummer. He realized that, I'm good, but I could be better.
Right.
And I always respected that.
Yeah.
That he was humble like that and stuff like that.
The best players in the world are the most humble players. They know where they came from. They know, even if they're millionaires like Neil Peart, flying around in helicopters and doing this stuff, they're never satisfied with the level they're at now. They always want to be better. And so you get to this point, like you were saying, where Neil Peart is just considered to be the quintessential best drummer that ever existed by many people's opinion. And I would probably tend to agree with that. It wasn't Ringo Starr, but Neil Peart. So he just gets so good, and then he realizes, I'm still not satisfied with this. I need to go back to jazz, because if you listen to the jazz drummers, that's a whole nother universe of complexity and technique. But it sounds simple. You think just because it's jazz and it's that it would be simple, but no way.
Back then, they were like the masters of their instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they still are. I think one of the things Neil Peart learned from the jazz drummers was, apparently Neil Peart could play different time signatures with all four of his limbs. He could be playing 4/4 perfectly on the snare or something. Then he could be playing 3/3 over here. 3/3's like, but he could be playing 4/4.
Yeah.
On the other hand, at the same time, it doesn't. I can't. That's superhuman. Some people are born with this just like superhuman processor in their head. It doesn't make any sense, because you have to be a robot to pull that off, I think.
Yeah, I think we both agree, one of the most craziest drum beats of all time, besides, yes, Hard of the Sun, I believe it's called, is YYZ.
YYZ.
The dan 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 dan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I just said yes twice. That just reminded me of another band. Yes. That's what happens when you geek out about stuff, is you go down these rabbit trails. For those unaware, you might be, I don't know how much background stuff you can hear. I am at Tessa's house. This is your house, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're in the kitchen, talking to her brother, and things are going well. You said I told you at the beginning, you don't have to be nervous about any of this. We're just going to be talking about music or whatever.
But I wanted to be prepared as I could, because I've never done this. So I mentally told myself, this is not a big deal.
And it's not.
And it's not.
Right. It's just fun. If you're not having fun, then why do it? That's the other thing. I didn't know we were going to talk about so much music. I was just going to go with the flow, and the flow is that we're both geeking out right now, since it's Geek Therapy Radio. We're geeking out about music. And one of the other pieces of advice I like to give people who are learning an instrument or learning any craft is, you have to have fun with it. One indicator, a good indicator of whether or not you're going to get good at it, is if you enjoy doing it. Because if you don't enjoy doing it, if you don't have fun with it, if you're not having fun playing guitar, you're not going to have any sort of incentive or motivation to get better at it. You may plateau sometimes, and you may get bored with it sometimes, but then you pick it up again, you practice again, you force yourself to practice, and you unlock like some other mystery. You play another chord that you didn't know yesterday, or some new scale that you never your fingers somehow are moving better today.
Some days you just feel imaginative. Like, I had a day about 2 weeks ago, I was alone at home, and I was just playing guitar, and that was just one of the days I just could not stop writing.
Yeah.
Like, everything that I touched and did just
It worked.
It worked.
Yeah,
It clicked.
It worked. And exactly. It gave you that endorphin rush. I mean,
yeah.
that's something it boils down to is it made you feel good to do that creative outlet. One of the things that I'm so passionate about on the show is that we get with school and work and life and whatever we got going on, we can get pulled down and bummed out with the doldrums of routine. So I think it's very important for people to remember hobbies that they might have had as a kid or a teenager that they have somehow lost the time to do, or with the job and with school and everything like that, they kind of lost time. So spend 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, like thinking, what did I like to do when I was a kid? And I always go back to the analogy of Legos. Lots of us like to play with Legos as a kid. So now that we're adults, what is keeping us from just getting a little cheap set of Legos and building something again? Just having that creative outlet to break up the monotony and get that endorphin rush in a good way.
Yeah, in fact, do you remember Tinker Toys?
Yes.
Yeah, that was like the world's first Legos.
Yep. My favorite, oh man, we're going off on another tangent. I thought this was only going to be a 10-minute segment. Here we are, 16 minutes.
But we haven't got to, like...
the meat and potatoes yet.
Yeah, like talking about, how I was born, what I've been through in my life.
Okay, that's a good break point. I'm going to break right here. So, listeners, just stay with me. If you're listening on the radio here on KPRC 950 AM, we'll be back in just, a couple minutes, 3 or 4 minutes. If you're listening to the podcast, it's going to be instant. You're going to hear this outro, and you'll hear the intro. We're going to get right back into it. So we'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio right after this. Dishes are fine. You can make noise with dishes. It's fine. We're back, Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger, sitting here with Chad. Right?
Yep.
For some reason, I just had a brain fart. Like Chad, I wanted to say Chaz for some reason. It's not. If you were a jazz musician, your name would probably be Chaz, because that sounds more jazzy. Anyways, Johnny Hamburger here, Chad, back, Geek Therapy Radio. And before the break, Chad has said, we haven't even talked about how I was born, my upbringing, and stuff like that. And I was like, well, let's put a pause in it, put a pin in the hat, and we'll come back to it. So, Chad, tell us, you brought it up. What is your story?
Well, it started in 1989.
Good year.
I was born. Yeah, good year. Not much happened, but good year.
You happened.
And I was born 2 months premature. I'm actually a twin. The other twin is deceased. It got miscarried. So, anyway, I was born...
You're carrying the flame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was born 2 months premature, and I had... And they told... This is the most messed up thing in the world, but they told my parents, if you want to see him right now is the time, because... we don't expect him to live very long.
Right.
Because the cord was wrapped around my neck and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm here.
Yeah.
29 years going strong. Anyway, but I've had some shortcomings. When I was 3 years old, I had my first seizure, epileptic seizure.
Right.
The way I remember it, I was just in the back of the car.
You remember it?
Yeah.
Wow. 3's, yeah, okay. Go on, that's amazing.
Well, it's one of those things, like, it's such a traumatic experience.
Yeah, I get it, yeah. That makes sense.
Never forget, you know?
Right.
I was in the back of, I don't remember what car, I know it was a car, and I just fell over. And the next thing I know, they take me to the doctor, they say, your son has epilepsy. And all through the 90s, I literally lived in a hospital. So much so that they would actually give me my own Super Nintendo to play with.
Nice. That's pretty cool. What? Okay, go on. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you got a question?
No, I was just... You said Super Nintendo. You can't say Super Nintendo on Geek Therapy Radio and not having me start thinking about
Mario
and
Donkey Kong,
Ninja Turtles, and Donkey Kong Country. Everybody loved Donkey Kong Country. Even Sarah. Sarah doesn't play many video games other than Tetris, where she kicks my butt at. But Donkey Kong Country, do you remember? And I really do want to get back to more of your life story. But do you remember Donkey Kong Country, the water levels?
Oh yeah,
that had the best music.
Yeah,
to tie it in with last segment, that was great.
Something
music.
Therapeutic about it.
Yes,
exactly. If I can remember, it's like
yes. Oh, it gave me goosebumps, just to remember it. It's so ethereal and therapeutic, like you said. Anyway, so you lived in a hospital, but you got your own Super Nintendo.
Yeah, and I used to play Mario. Super Knockout was me and my dad's favorite video game growing up.
Was it Punch Out or Knockout?
Super Nintendo, it was Knockout. Okay. Super Punch Out or Super Knockout or something like that.
Was the previous NES.
The NES one was the one with Tyson in it.
But they changed that later.
Yeah.
Right. That's another interesting topic, why they changed it from Mike Tyson.
Fun fact for our geek viewers out there,
yeah.
Tyson is literally the hardest boss in Nintendo history.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. See, you probably remember the term, people say video games are hard and then they're Nintendo hard. Because those old NES games, Castlevania, I played Castlevania a couple years ago thinking, this is going to be easy. No. Castlevania is super hard. One of the things is you have only a select amount of lives, and when you die, you always, with the very limited lives you have to start way back at the front of the level. Even if you die in a boss, you have to go right back to the beginning of the level, and if you lose all your lives, you're done. No continue, game over. So you had to beat that game all the way through, almost perfectly, and very few people did it. I did it because I did it on an emulator, and I kept using save states. I was cheating, basically.
Yeah.
I beat Castlevania through cheating.
Yeah, but Castlevania was one of those games that changed the entire thing.
It was ahead of its time.
It was ahead of its time, way
sure.
ahead of its time. And it was definitely, but the only game that's harder than that I know of is Ghosts and Goblins. Because you literally have 2 shots.
Yeah.
First hit, your armor is stripped, and then you die.
Oh, yeah. That's funny because his armor would fly off and he'd be in his underpants. That was funny. That was risky for a game back then. Nintendo used to have this policy of they wouldn't allow overt religious symbols. They wouldn't, you couldn't, the crosses in Castlevania, they had to fight so hard to keep the crosses in there because they...
In holy water,
they didn't want to. What if a Jewish person plays this game? They don't want to see crucifixes and stuff. So Nintendo tried to be kind of middle of the road with it. They have since abandoned that route when Mortal Kombat 2 came out.
And look what's come out of it. You got Final Fantasy, and Chrono Trigger.
Great games, RPGs. I didn't like RPGs growing up in the 90s.
I didn't either.
But then later I really appreciated them. I love Final Fantasy now.
I used to play Zelda, and I never got anywhere in it because I just couldn't read that fast as a kid.
Oh, right. I didn't want to read that fast as a kid. There's too much text on the screen. I just want to jump on.
This is embarrassing, but I never even made it in the castle because I couldn't read that there was a secret
in Zelda.
In Zelda, yeah.
You know what? I didn't get very far in Zelda too. Because
Link to the Past is the one I grew up with.
That's what I meant. I meant 2TOO. I didn't get very far in Zelda as well because, just to be frank with it, I got bored as a little kid. I would run around, you're stabbing things with a sword, little monsters and stuff like that. And as soon as there was reading, I was like, I'm out. I'm not playing anymore. There's reading in here. What is this, school? Got to read.
Yeah.
So, anyways, you're in the hospital because you want to tell your story, and you have a Nintendo, and we got super sidetracked by the Super Nintendo.
Yep. Well,
go on.
That's going to happen with 2 geeks.
Exactly. I'm not offended by it, so
anyway,
it's fine.
Anyway, I had several surgeries growing up. The first one was cranial stenosis surgery. I was actually born without a soft spot. You know how most babies are born with soft spot and layer fills in?
Right, hardens or whatever.
I was born without that. So what they had to do was it was a experimental surgery back then.
Wow.
Dr. Schaefer is the first one that came up with it. And what they had to do was they cut into my skull, and they had to take the bones from the back of my skull and put them in the front.
How old are you when they were just...
I was an infant.
Okay.
So I wouldn't remember this.
No, right. But did you have surgeries after, like through the 90s? You said you were in the hospital?
Oh, yeah. Countless surgeries. Let's see. I had heart cap balloon. I think that was also when I was very young. Mm-hmm. I had 2 eye surgeries because one side of my body is weaker than the other. Mm-hmm. So the eyes were weaker, so they had to go in and make the muscle behind the eye stronger.
Right. Yeah, like retension it, or I'm not a surgeon. I don't know exactly what they did, but I figure retention it or something.
And let's see, I had I mentioned the heart cap balloon, 2 eye surgeries, and let's see, this right here. When I was 17, I had a kind of a pacemaker thing. It's a vagus nerve stimulator, and what it does is
he's touching his left shoulder.
Okay,
Right
I'm going to backtrack.
pectoral.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I have horrible ADD, so I'm going to backtrack.
No, yeah, go for it.
Before I had this, what I'm about to tell you about, all there was for people like me in the 90s was this just awful diet called the ketogenic diet.
Diet.
Yes.
Like what you could eat.
What you could eat.
Yeah, okay.
And what it was is, name it. Name something delicious. You couldn't
Pizza.
have it. You couldn't have it.
No pizza.
They would have to weigh the chicken, skinless, and weigh it. I couldn't have regular Kool-Aid. I had to have sugar-free Kool-Aid. And you don't know me very well, but I love food. So after a while of this, I was literally depressed.
Yeah.
And I was
plain old chicken.
Yeah.
Basically.
And my hair was falling out and everything. Mm-hmm. So finally they got me off of it, and I was the happiest person in the world.
So can you eat whatever, well, all of us can eat whatever we want. Should we eat whatever we want? That's a different topic. But can you have like pizza and stuff now?
Honestly, as long as you have self-control, I say live it up.
Yeah.
You only live once.
Moderation, exactly. Moderation. So, but you can have pizza now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank God, because I love pizza.
How are you able to do that? Like, what changed? Did they give you some, like a new prescription or something like that allows you to eat these
I'm
things?
getting to
or did
that.
you just say, screw it, I'm going to eat it?
Well, here...
YOLO.
Well, like I said, that was the only option to manage seizures. I was having 40 seizures a month as a kid.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's more than every day.
And I would have to sleep on oxygen as a kid when I wasn't in the hospital. And couldn't go on field trips very much. I was a very shut-in person, you know? Didn't have many friends growing up because who wants to deal with a kid having seizures all the time?
Yeah. There's that, and I don't know if you know this about me. My sister's special needs. She drowned when she was 2. She was underwater for 20 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
It's okay. So your story, you said earlier that when your doctors told your parents, if you want to see your son, you need to come now because he might not survive the night, or he's not going to survive the night. It's probably what they did say.
Yeah.
They said the same thing about my sister after her accident when she was 2 years old. They said she's not going to survive the night. Then they said she's not going to survive the day, she's not going to survive the week, she's not going to survive the month. And that was back in 1982, and she's still here. She's severely brain damaged and quadriplegic. We feed her through a stomach tube and suction her all the time and change diapers, all that stuff. But the doctors told her, my parents, the same thing. And actually, you know, one of the things that I wasn't born yet. I was born because my sister got hurt. I was the second attempt at a little girl. Too bad they got a boy. And then they tried again with my little brother. He got another boy, and after 5 kids, my mom's like, okay, that's enough. So anyways, one of the things I remember from the story of that eventful day, I'll set this up. My dad had returned from Vietnam maybe a little less than 10 years before that, and he made it to sergeant in Vietnam. And you don't make it to sergeant in Vietnam without the position becoming available, if you know what I mean. That means that people someone had to be deceased, and then the next up would be the sergeant. That person would get KIA, and then the next person. So my dad rose through the ranks quickly in Vietnam and became sergeant, which means he was looking after the care of 9 to 12 men in his not his company, but his regiment, I guess. So he was the one that had to tell soldiers, I need you to go here, I need you to do this, I need you to do that. So he was trying his best to give orders that were effective, but also not result in casualties, which is impossible. So these were his friends. These were these are your buddies out there in the jungle, and he had to tell them to do things that wound up getting some of them killed, which is not his fault. But that's a whole nother bag of worms there with PTSD. His PTSD stemmed from that fact that he tried his best to keep his men safe, but unfortunately some of them got killed, and he got awarded by the president, not himself, but he got the Medal of Valor. And all his buddies who survived said, you just need, after my dad died, they're just like, you just need to know that your dad was a hero. So I say all that to say this. His severe PTSD stemmed from the fact that he was in charge of men's lives, and some of them died under his command. Again, not his fault. So when he came home from work a few years later and saw his only little girl floating in the pool, that was man down again, because he was the sergeant of our family. He was the leader of our family. So the impact of not just losing a man on a battlefield, but seeing your own daughter floating there. I do not understand how my dad was able to keep a career, because a lot of Vietnam veterans suffer with PTSD, and they're homeless, and they have drug problems and all sorts of things. I don't know how my dad was able to go through Vietnam, then see what happened to my sister, and still keep able to work and provide for 5 kids, including now a special needs daughter, his only little girl. He passed away in 2013. But going back to the story where the doctors were telling your parents, you need to see him now because he might not survive the night. That's what the doctors told my parents. And my dad, again, what I took out of the story is that my dad was pacing the halls, crying and wailing and sobbing, holding his head saying, please just give her my brain. Just take my brain and give it to her, because she was so severely brain damaged. And that's a very poignant. I'm not sure how much I can relate to your individual situation. All I know is that I've grown up around, my sister, who is severely special needs, and I grew up around lots of kids who had Down syndrome or other disabilities and whatnot. But what I learned from all of them is all of them have their own things to say. They have their own opinions, and they have their own ideas and concerns and fears, just like everyone else. And more importantly to me, and to the theme of my show, Geek Therapy Radio, they're geeks about something. So while thank God you aren't, there's, I guess, degrees of disabilities and whatnot.
Yeah.
You're able to play a guitar, and you're able to do some cool stuff and like go to audio engineering school. Like, it doesn't matter what grades you even get there. The stuff you're learning there, because you are a geek, and which geek is a good thing. Geeks are sexy. Is remarkable. And everyone has their geek thing. My friend Craig, who I interviewed on the last episode, he He doesn't have Down syndrome. He fell off of a table probably like this when he was a little boy, and if he would ask Craig, what is your condition? He doesn't understand the question. But you're able to work around. Craig, did you ever get hurt as a little boy? Yeah, I fell off a table. Okay, that's what happened when he was a little infant. The soft spot, like you were talking about, falling, hitting his head. So most people might see Craig, someone like him who can't really speak very well, and they don't want to deal with him. You were saying that it was so hard to be friends with sometimes with somebody who was like having seizures or whatever, which is unfortunate, because if you get to know them, you don't have to sleep over with them every single night or whatever, but just spend a little time with them to get to know what they're about, because you'd have something in common.
Well, I had a couple friends. One was Dustin Littner-Rhodes.
I'm not saying you didn't have any friends, but yeah.
But I wasn't. This was like in elementary.
Uh-huh.
The time that I really struggled getting friends was like, it was like in high school and everything.
I could imagine, yeah.
And it was mostly because they put me in special ed classes.
Right.
And I think you even said, like, I'm not that special ed.
Right. That's not what I meant. But yes, you're right. You're like yeah.
No offense.
Yeah, I know. You're right. Right.
But
you're separated from the class.
Yeah, and you know, I feel bad about it today, but it really hurt me to be in there because I couldn't communicate with the people, and I'm a people person. I love to communicate.
Right.
And
you're communicating to a lot of people right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be nervous. There's a lot of people.
But I helped them however I could, but very little of them could speak, you know?
Right.
In terms that you could understand.
Right.
But all through high school, like, I struggled with having that kind of persona, that kind of people relate to you as that, you know?
Right.
He's part of that group.
Right.
And I would sit with everybody. I didn't care who you were, if you were popular, if you were a geek, if you were weird or anything. Right. I didn't care. But going back to my childhood, I struggled with learning disabilities. Like, I couldn't even do basic math. Teaching basic math to me back when I was a kid was like teaching me calculus.
Yeah. I struggle with math now, but yeah.
And back then, like I said, they didn't have much they could do for you. So they just passed you along the system.
Right.
And me as an adult, I kind of struggle with that because it's like you weren't really prepared, you know?
Yeah.
But thank God, I'm doing very well in college so far.
Good. College, I think, you know, it gives you the kind of freedom to... They present the material to you, but it's kind of up to you to learn it however you want to learn it. So it kind of gives you... Like, you're going for audio engineering, here's how to hook up a microphone or whatever. You're free to do with that microphone whatever you want. And that's one of the things that I liked about audio engineering school when I went to it, is my instructors, one of them at least, Dan, he's like, I'm teaching you like out of a book of technically how to do it, but know that really there is no book. There's no right way to do something. It's just whatever sounds good to you. This is a very artistic medium. It's a very artistic area of study. So one of the things he would say to me is, you know, I'm teaching you how to set up a Neumann U67 like vintage microphone, $20,000, $30,000 microphone. How do you hook it up into the power supply and then go into interface and then go into the big Neve console or whatever? Neves are like, cost as much as houses. But he said, so basically I'm teaching you this signal chain that has $500,000 in between the person's mouth and laying it down to Pro Tools or to tape, if the people who still use tape, which they still use tape in recording studio. Anyways, there's $500,000 in between your mouth and what other people are hearing, what you're doing. It doesn't have to be that way. If you can get the sound that you want by putting a cheap little $20 Radio Shack microphone inside of a coffee can and then hanging it on a string, and that gives you the sound you want, that cost you a total of $10. But that's where the art comes in. So your instructors are able to try to instruct you how to use Pro Tools or how to set up a mic. But after that, you have that creative freedom to do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, and I always, when people say to me, what are audio engineers? I always say that we're sort of like magicians.
Yeah.
We're making something appear that was, you could take a bad recording, right? Not that bad recording, but say you have ambience in the room, air conditioner going off. All that in the process is cleaned up and got rid of. So it's like it never existed. So in a way, we're like magicians. We're making things appear as if they never existed.
Right. But also, you're taking ideas that are only locked in your head.
Exactly.
And you're, putting them out into the world, into reality.
Yeah, that's the artistic part of it.
Right.
But the thing I found...
But it's like magic. Your idea is only in your head. No one knows it yet until you talk into the microphone, until you record it, until you clean it up like you were saying, until you make it into... It's like making a cake or something, except all the ingredients come out of your head, come out of thin air. Which is neat.
Yeah.
Part of the... Let me ask you this question. We only have like 7 minutes left. So grew up listening to music, loving music. Like you said, you started out listening. It was Journey, right? Your dad was showing you Journey. Was it Journey or Foreigner?
Foreigner.
It was Foreigner. Okay, so maybe you're like me in this, and I have a very strong suspicion that you are. Listen to music, listen to Foreigner, listening to Leonard Skinner, and it was like magic to listen to it because I didn't understand how the microphones worked. I didn't understand even how our guitar worked. I didn't understand mixing and mastering and how they made it so polished. It was just all so like fascinating and interesting to me that I could get lost in the music. But now, after I've gone to sound school, like you're going to sound school and recording school and everything like that, it took a little part of the magic away from the listening experience because now I know, they probably used an SM57 on that guitar or something like that. They probably did this. They probably put this compression on the vocal. They probably did this EQ to this. I know how the sausage is made now, so to speak.
It's kind of like a magician that reveals his tricks.
Right. I know the tricks now. But it opened up this whole new world of, now I know how to make the magic. I can make the magic myself. It's like someone gave me the magic wand to be able to create something. Rather than just having someone create something and give it to me and me not know at all what they did, I can listen to Foreigner now, and you can listen to Foreigner now knowing I can picture the microphone, in front of the guy's mouth. I can picture kind of what they're going into, the interfaces and stuff like that. The guy playing the keyboard, I know basically what MIDI is now. So once you know that, it's like you said, it's like the musician or the magician / musician revealed their tricks, and now you have the tools to make your own magic trick.
If I may,
you may.
Yes. So I went through learning disabilities, seizures, and everything, which over the years having seizures gives you brain damage anyway. Mm-hmm. So, but praise God, I have not had a seizure in almost 3 years now.
Wow.
I do that.
That's good. That's amazing.
And I'll tell you straight up right now, I would have never been able to get through everything that I've gone through without faith.
Yeah. Big time.
In God and everything.
Right.
And if there's one thing that I could end this with is that, let me stress to you, no matter what you're going through in your life, never give up.
Yeah.
Never give up. Never surrender. I've just always had this warrior mentality about me.
Good.
that I believe was a gift from God. I wish I could give it to everybody, especially people that are thinking about suicide and everything. But my faith in God has gotten me through some pretty rough times. And compared to where I was back then and where I am now, it's like worlds apart. It's like only God was capable of doing that. Because, like I said, I was not the brightest kid in the world.
I've got some stories myself, but yeah. Well, I think you just gave a lot of you. You said in high school, all you wanted to do was help people. Mm-hmm. So you did. You have been. It all goes with the music theme. God has used you as an instrument to help people. And now you have this metaphorical megaphone in front of you. There's a lot of people that are going to hear this. And it's even in the small things. You know, they're going to go to work on Monday or tomorrow or whenever they're listening to this podcast. It might be before work, or you might be going to bed or afternoon, whatever. Because of you, a lot of people are going to be able to get over that next hurdle that they thought they couldn't get over. Mm-hmm. And that is 100% because of you, and because, what you said, how God used you, which is amazing. See, I knew there's a point. If my show gets shut down tomorrow, this single podcast, what number is this? I think it's 56 now. This one would have made it all worth it. Yeah. This one is the one.
I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will have you on again. We're coming up on the end here. Chad, thank you so much for being on Geek Therapy Radio. Like I said, I'm going to have you on again. This was amazing. I'm not sure when. I'm not saying next week, but, a few months, whatever happens.
Whenever you're free, I'm free.
Yeah, man.
I've really enjoyed this.
Well, thank you so much for being on. Yeah, I don't even know what to say at the end of this show. Thank you for listening to Geek Therapy Radio. Go follow all the Geek Therapy Radio stuff on social media and Facebook and Instagram, all that good stuff. Nothing I can say right now is going to stack up knee-high in a grasshopper, or whatever you said, to the inspiration you just gave us all. Like, anything I could say right now about the show and promoting is like moot. But anyways, listeners, thank you so much for listening to Geek Therapy Radio. Chad, thank you for being here. And listen in the future. I'm going to have Chad on again. He's going to drop some more eggs of knowledge and inspiration on us.